Hello, Betty. Thank you for joining me. So, you're a sports chaplain. Now, many people don't know what that is, but I think you've been a sports chaplain for many, many years, starting up in Rochdale, I think. Can you tell us how that all started for you?
Well, when I was the parish priest in Rochdale, it was actually St Clement's, Scotland. It's actually next door to the rugby and football field. And I've always been passionately keen on rugby league. So I went round and spoke to the manager and I said, I'm the vicar next door. Would you be interested in having a chaplain? And he looked at me and he said, No, what could we do with you? Anyhow, a year later, the manager had changed, and I went round and I said, I'm the vicar next door. Would you be at all interested in having a chaplain? He said, What are your credentials? And I said, Well, lifelong rugby league supporter, season ticket holder with Saints, that's St Helens, avid rugby league watcher. And he said, Right, you're in. And that was the start of it. And I was their first chaplain.
Gosh. So, we didn't hold you being a supporter of St. Helens against you then?
Not at all. And in fact, amongst the players, there were two brothers. One of them played for St Helens and one of them played for Rochdale, but they're in different leagues. And their dad used to go to both.
Yeah, yeah. So
So yeah, it was
that's
good.
a great story. So tell us a bit then, you now doing a bit different type of chaplaincy, still sports, but disability sports. Tell us a bit about what you're doing at the moment.
Well, it's very different. I was asked when the whole subject of chaplaincy came up, what I would be particularly interested in. And anyone who is a sports chaplain with Sports Chaplaincy UK would be asked if there were any sports, grassroots or even main level, that they were interested in. And I have a granddaughter who is quite severely disabled, who has done wheelchair dancing for Great Britain and won. And I thought, well, I would probably know some of the issues involved in disability sports. So I asked for a disability sport, and Swansea Storm, who are absolutely great, meet just down the road from where I live at LC2. So they train on Tuesday nights, Friday nights, and the juniors on Saturday. And then, of course, there are matches as well, but it's all nice and conveniently near. And
Mm.
they're very varied in their disabilities, but more importantly, they're varied as well in their interests and the sort of people they are and their ages.
Yeah. So what is sports chaplaincy then? I mean, obviously, my experience is the prison chaplaincy, and the context does make a big difference. So what are the kinds of chaplaincy issues that you're facing and helping with?
Well, in sports chaplaincy generally, you're dealing with a lot of loss because if you were the Olympic chaplain, which there is one, you're dealing with people who have been training for multiples of 4 years to run for 4 minutes to come in fourth. And the sense of loss is enormous.
Mm.
In disability sport, you're quite often dealing with people who have lost a lot and sometimes suddenly. It might have been a car accident when they've lost the use of most of their body and it's all happened very suddenly.
Mm.
But also, a lot of people who are disabled do have a sense of loss anyway,
Yeah.
because they can't access some of the things which able-bodied people can. And sport is a great healer. But like anybody else, they have issues of bereavement, housing, funds, what they live on, their ambitions, ordinary life, broken relationships, expectations which fail, expectations which succeed, because success can be as dangerous as failure, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the chaplain's job is to be there to support them in an absolutely non-judgmental way and just to give all the moral and religious, if you can, support in every possible way. With some clubs, and mine's one, we also end up doing quite a lot of physical work, as in, I can help get the wheelchairs out, take the wheelchairs back, the sports wheelchairs. Because bearing in mind that some people couldn't possibly, they can sit in a wheelchair, but they can't actually move the wheelchairs into the storage. I quite often at matches end up as the gopher, go for the drinks, go for the this, that, and the other. And sometimes actually, you end up, well, running around looking for things like ice cubes or minding someone who is having a fit, um, looking after the parents sometimes if it's the juniors, all sorts of different things. It's very varied and sometimes hard work, but
Yeah.
always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's one of the things I always say with prison chaplaincies, you have to be willing to just get stuck in and do what is needed.
Absolutely.
If there's a
Mm.
need, try to see if you can meet it, within your own boundaries, of course. So tell me a
Yes.
bit about your own um, faith background and how that has made you the kind of chaplain you are.
Well, I grew up in St Helens in Lancashire. I now live in St Helens in Swansea. Um, and used to go to the Anglican church, and I always looked at a very beautiful Quaker meeting house that's in St Helens. It's one of the ancient ones, and it's beautiful. And I wanted to go there, but unless you were Quaker, you didn't. Anyhow, I was working in Manchester, and there was Mount Street, which is a big big Quaker meeting house, which met on a Wednesday as well as Sunday. So when I was working in Manchester, I used to be Anglican at the weekends and Quaker in the week. And actually, that for me was a very healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And then as time passed on, there was all the issue of women's ordination. And that was quite a long journey, really. And it wasn't possible to go to as many Quaker meetings. And as I moved around, nor was it always possible to go to a Quaker meeting at all. And quite often there were none in the week. And Sunday, of course, would have clashed with everything I was doing.
Mm.
So I was ordained with the first women priests when it happened as a sort of moment in history.
Mm.
And then primarily was obviously in ministry as an Anglican. But I still had quite a few Quaker meeting friends, and occasionally we would get together and have a sort of a meeting, well, a definite meeting. And Quaker values have always been very important to me and still are. And then much further down the line, I moved to where I live now. My husband was very seriously ill, and it was easy. And in fact, sometimes it was the only possible place to go to the Methodist church across the road. And they made me welcome and licensed me and everything else as well. And I sometimes went to the Quaker Meeting House, which is also just down the road,
Mm.
where I've still got quite a lot of friends.
Mm.
As it's happened with Storm, it's been easier for me to develop a relationship between Storm and a church by staying Methodist, because the Methodist church that they are now attached to is completely user-friendly, completely accessible, and they were willing and eager to be able to take on this role. So in that sense, they helped my chaplaincy, really, and make everything a lot more meaningful. Storm don't by any means go every week, but they do go for special events. We made a lot of National Sports Sunday. That was great. And
Mm.
we had people of all denominations and lots of different sports people, including people who swim for Wales and play for Wales.
Mm.
So it was quite an exciting do. And the next time that Storm will be coming will be harvest as well, when hopefully we'll have some fun. So I know this is a Quaker channel,
Mm.
and being Quaker is still an important part of my life. Issues of peace, non-war, non-violence, all of those I think are fundamentally important to society. And they are important in sport as well. A
Mm.
lot of sports people do take on issues, if you like, of all sorts of different things. A lot of the issues that I now have to deal with because of chaplaincy are issues of disability and accessibility,
Mm,
and with possible cuts in welfare benefits and so on, that's going to make a difference as well,
mm,
to quite a lot of them in some ways.
yeah,
So whatever your sports chaplaincy is, it affects other issues and other areas of your life as well.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
no reason whatsoever, incidentally, why anyone of any denomination, and that includes Quaker, becoming a chaplain. They
right.
need the heart for it, they need the soul for it, they need the
Yeah.
motivation, but there's no reason why not.
That's what I was going to ask you, really. What do you think we're looking for? If somebody is watching this, whether they're a young person or an older person or Christian or non-theist, like what do you say is important in terms of if they were interested in sport particularly? What kinds of personal attributes and spiritual practice and beliefs do you think might somewhat limit their choices or open their choices?
In Sports Chaplaincy UK, which breaks down into Sports Chaplaincy England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then the branch I'm in splits down even more, Sports Chaplaincy UK, Wales, Disability.
Mm,
It's very definitely Christian.
right.
Very definitely. I mean, that's the sort of root of what we're doing and how we're involved, which doesn't mean that there aren't some clubs somewhere who might actually be very welcoming to a chaplain who wasn't necessarily
Hmm.
Christian,
Hmm.
but in ours they would need to be. And ours gives a lot of support to all of us and really helps us chaplains in all sorts of ways.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine those kind of governing bodies, if you like, are very helpful. So
Yes.
what would a Christian Quaker need to do if they were interested in exploring this? How do they have to look for an opportunity or actually go and speak to a club themselves like you did?
Well, they wouldn't be speaking to the club themselves. I mean, I wasn't involved in Sports Chaplaincy UK in Rochdale. I don't know if it even existed then.
Hmm.
Um, that was mainly Christians in sport who gave support there.
Yeah.
I think actually, if anyone did, they could contact Sports Chaplaincy UK,
Hmm.
and then they would be able to speak to someone through that. And then they would be helped if they were deemed suitable for the job, if you like. Um, they would get some training, things like CRB checks and so on, obviously. And they would be helped to find a club
Yeah.
because sometimes there are clubs that are waiting for a chaplain.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, that's really helpful. With this particular body then, Sports Chaplaincy UK, is there some kind of creedal statement that you need to
No, no,
sign
no,
up
no,
to?
no. We would all be Christian. But I mean, there are Catholics, there are Methodists, there are Free Church Evangelical, Anglican. So we're a
They would
pretty diverse
accept
bunch
if
anyway.
a Quaker,
Male,
Quaker,
female, all ages.
yeah. So if a Quaker said, "I'm
I
Christian,"
don't,
they would.
if you said you're a Christian Quaker, there wouldn't be any problem, I don't think.
Oh, that sounds great. Well,
I
that's
really can't
wonderful.
see how there would be. Because a
Yeah,
Christian is a Christian is a Christian, however they choose to express their faith.
yeah. So in terms of a typical event, then let's finish with some of the detail. What does a typical event when you go along as a chaplain, um, in terms of the human interactions? Because you've talked a bit about kind of putting wheelchairs away and all of that. What are the kind of relationships and perhaps some of the, does it get very poignant or emotional for you? Is it quite a personal challenge sometimes?
Sometimes, yes. On the whole, no. At first, in any chaplaincy, I think you just sort of drape yourself around the place until people actually become accustomed to you. In Rochdale, when it was Rochdale Hornets, I ate an awful lot of chips because I found the best way of relating to the players who were all young men and they always went for chips, usually before and after their practice sessions. If I was down there, we would all sit on the wall outside the chip shop eating chips. Then they were happy to talk to me.
Mm, mm.
So that was actually the mission ground there and the helpful
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
Now, on a Tuesday evening, for example, I might be talking to sometimes the people who are the personal assistants or occasionally the parents of adult disabled sports people,
Mm,
remembering that some of them can't drive and some of them do need to be brought. And occasionally people need to have someone with them all the time.
mm,
And that conversation goes wherever that conversation goes. And sometimes you find that there is a lot to talk about, and sometimes not an awful lot apart from hello, how are you? The players themselves, it took quite a while for them to come and find me, but now they do. And we talk about all sorts of things, things that are going on in their lives, the struggles to get a job sometimes, and issues of bereavement, family relationships, um, things that are going on at church as well, because some of them are actually doing crafts which we then use in church and sell for the benefit of church or a charity. And that's done another layer of friendship, if you like, and fellowship.
mm,
Um, Occasionally, people are really worried about their health. I mean, they're worried about the health all the time,
mm,
but
mm,
it is a tribe. It is their extended family, and
mm.
they get on remarkably well. So I might be helping with the wheelchairs either before or after. I certainly might be going off to buy teas, coffees, and everything else from the cafe. Conversation, yes, and sometimes actually just watching, and
Yeah.
occasionally go in a sports wheelchair myself, and sometimes helping in with some of the people when they're new, helping them to get used to the sports wheelchair, and sometimes actually helping them in the, if you like, the ball skills of bouncing, passing, throwing, and baskets.
Yeah, yeah.
But usually they know better than me, so they can tell me.
But it's really, I mean, what you've just described there is getting yourself about the place and getting
Yes.
known and becoming part of that community, isn't it?
Mhm.
And if you can become part of that community in a committed way, then you will be helpful and you will be, a blessing to the community. And of course, it's a blessing to us as individuals as well.
And we go out to social things together as well at certain times of the year, like Christmas, everyone goes.
Yeah,
And that's good because it's the juniors and their parents and all the seniors. And
yeah.
incidentally, some of them are hoping that they're going to be in the Commonwealth Games. So you've got a lot of excitement about that and a lot of worry about that, I think, as well, because people don't compete to lose, they compete to win, which is
Mm,
always the case. And
mm,
therefore, again, you've got the issue of potential loss.
mm.
And they're only a broken finger away from major injury.
Yes, indeed. There's a fragility, isn't there? There's a
Yeah,
fragility.
hugely.
Mm. Well, thank you so much. I think that's going to be really informative for people. So it's been really interesting talking to you.
And
Thank you.
to you too.